Are you a mom who's planning on leaving a narcissist? Have you recently left a narcissist? This video is for you. Additionally, if you know someone who's in a relationship with a narcissist or someone who is otherwise emotionally abusive in any way, and they're planning on leaving the relationship and they share kids with this person, this video is also for you because it will help you to help them. So, the main points of this video are what to expect, uh, because that is so important when leaving a person who has these traits. These traits make a person extremely dangerous, as you're probably aware, but dangerous in ways that you may not be aware of. So I'd like to cover three main points that I think are some of the most important things you need to know in the very first stage of leaving a person like this. So, what to expect. Number one, expect love bombing or a version of love bombing. Why does this happen? By leaving the relationship, you have asserted control over them. This is probably the worst thing you could possibly do to someone who thrives on control. So, leaving the relationship, you've taken all the control, all the power. They probably have a high rejection sensitivity, so you've triggered that. You've probably triggered a lot of different things. And even though to you it seems like it should be so obvious because you have likely given them so many warnings that this will be the eventual outcome if they don't change their behavior, they've ignored it. They've called your bluff, they had no intention in changing, so they didn't. So here you are. Shouldn't come as a surprise. Uh, I'll hold off on that point because there's more to that. But they will probably act surprised, even though they shouldn't. And their first tactic of regaining control when they feel like they have no control is to be extremely nice to you. So they'll probably try to get back on your good side using various different tactics that could come across in a love bomby type of way, just to use a term that most of us are familiar with. So, what this could look like. Let's say you've been asking them over and over again for a long time to go to couples therapy with you. You've come to the conclusion that if you don't get help from an outside party, a neutral party, someone with expertise in this area, nothing's going to change. And so that's become your last resort and the thing that you've asked them to do in order to help the relationship improve. They haven't been willing to do it. Now, all of a sudden, now that you've left the relationship, they're willing to go to couples therapy. Not only that, they're the one initiating it. They're the one contacting different places and sending you information and scheduling appointments and trying to make sure that you attend with them. So they do a complete 180. Now they're harassing you to do this and probably even guilting you into doing this to make you feel like you're the problem if you're not willing to make an effort now to save and salvage the relationship. So, how do I know this? Happened to me. So, uh, expect things like that. So, couples therapy is one example of something, whether or not you've been asking them to do it with you and they haven't been willing and now all of a sudden they are, or whether maybe you've never even tried to push that on them because you've known that they wouldn't do it for whatever reason. Now all of a sudden they might be bringing it up out of nowhere. Um, Another thing they might do to try to regain control of you in a more subtle way, this is still under the kind of love bombing, acts of kindness category, is trying to play on your sentimental emotions. So they will likely send you texts, if texting was your primary form of communication before when you weren't near each other, they'll probably send you lots of text messages at all times of the day telling you various forms of, I'm thinking of you, or I'm remembering this time we did this, or I'm remembering, how much you used to like doing this, and they might remind you of future plans that you had together. Um, trying to essentially kind of bombard you with all the good times and make you start questioning your reality and start second guessing your decision. So trying to make all the good things outweigh the negatives. That's another thing that could happen. So the length of time that this first stage can last will vary depending on the person and depending on your circumstances. So there's a lot of variables there. And depending on how you respond to it also. So depending on your specific situation, your circumstances, this is something that for anyone who decides to work with me in my upcoming coaching program, this is something that I will help you with, depending on your unique circumstances and the outcome that you're looking for during this time, because strategy here is important. So this is something I'll go into more in depth in terms of strategies for how to interact during this time and cover that, in a lot more detail. So, number 2, when this tactic becomes clear to them that it's not going to work, they will very quickly and abruptly switch to revenge, I'll call it. So they will start doing the exact opposite of everything they were doing before. Kind of like the devaluing phase, if you're familiar with the narcissistic abuse cycle. So while they were previously love bombing you to try to remind you of all the good times and get you to take them back, now everything they were saying and doing is completely out the window. Now you're the worst. You are nothing to them. Everything you've ever said or they've ever said to you is completely out the window. So here are some real life examples of what this can look like. Going back on all previous agreements that you had. So this is especially relevant to kids, which is who I'm talking to here. Women, mothers who share kids with the narcissistic partner. So you may have had agreements like deciding that your child or children were not old enough, mature enough to have a cell phone yet, let's say. This is something that happened for me, so I'll share this example. We had been in agreement all the way up until that point that my son was not ready for a cell phone. Probably less than a month after separating, guess who bought my son a cell phone? And I will talk more about how things like that are used, because in this case, it was not just a means of asserting control. Things like that are also used in parental alienation, which is a totally different video. But if that's something you're also interested in or worried about, let me know, and I'd be happy to talk more about that. So that's one example, going back on previous agreements. Another thing is, in this stage, you likely won't see these things coming. So what I want to help you to do is be prepared for the unpredictable. Essentially, you want to not be caught off guard by things that are intended to catch you off guard. So I have specific strategies for how to do this practically that I'll share with you in future coaching sessions or live calls, different avenues that I will have coming up. Essentially, expect the unexpected and prepare for attempts at creating chaos in attempt to maintain control. So another example of how this can look. My ex and I had previously agreed that if for any reason our relationship were to end, we would not be hiring lawyers, we would not be dragging one another through a legal battle, because we had seen how that had gone before. And So that had just been a casual conversation one day that had taken place after previous experiences that we'd both been through. And so we were in agreement on that verbally, that we wouldn't do that to each other if it ever came to the point of separating. Well, uh, not shocking, he went back on his word on that. Uh, Waited until I was out of the state on a planned residency trip for my school program that I was in, and went against all our previous agreements to have my son stay with my mom, his grandmother, during the time I was out of town. Picked him up from school one day without notifying anyone, hired a lawyer, had the lawyer contact me with a very threatening email, etc. So essentially, he took my son hostage and sent me threats using a lawyer. Um, some of this, sure, may fall into the category of being legally strategic if you share custody with someone. The main point is they'll go back on any agreements you've made, and they will make sure that they have the upper hand in any way possible. So do not expect them to be agreeable and communicate with you and work things out civilly and in the best interest of your kid. As soon as they realize that step one is not working for them, that being nice to you is not getting the desired outcome that they want, they switch into revenge mode, all bets are off. They do not care about your kids. They don't care about what's in the best interest of them. Keep that in mind. Do not expect them to be making decisions that are in the best interest of your kids, because you'll be caught off guard, surprised by this constantly over and over again. So this is very important to remember. When they switch into the second phase, anything is on the table for them. So after that, number 3, after going back on their word in every possible way and creating new things that you never thought would be possible. So they're just showing the worst possible version of them that you were only seeing in pieces before. So before this version of them would be spread out. You wouldn't see the full version of them for very long at one time. So it was very destabilizing, confusing, probably why you stayed in this relationship as long as you did, because it was so confusing and they weren't always like this. Now, this is the full version of them. This is who they are now. So after that phase has begun, the revenge phase, going against everything you previously agreed on, they will start creating a new narrative that you're the villain and they're the victim. They need to control the narrative. So this is why it is extremely important to know how and when to communicate with them before you get to this point, so that everything that you put in writing to them backs up the truth. When you go into a custody battle, you have two competing narratives. Two parents are trying to prove to a court that they deserve X amount of time with your kid or kids because X reasons. So everything you put in writing will be extremely important, because they will use everything they can against you. So I know that from reading the comments on previous videos that I've made, a lot of you have experience dealing with narcissists, let's say, people who exhibit these traits. We know that most narcissists are not diagnosed because they're not going to therapy, but we'll use that term without understanding here. So most of you have experience dealing with narcissists. So I'm curious, where are you in that process? Have you already gone through these stages? Sounds like a lot of you probably have already, because you seem very familiar with these types of patterns. So if any of these points ring true to you, I would love to hear about that. I'd also love to hear from those of you who are still in the planning stage and are needing to know what to expect because you have so much uncertainty around these next steps, not knowing what to do and how to make sure that you're properly equipped. So, I will continue putting out lots of videos on this topic. And like I said, behind the scenes, I'm also creating a coaching program for those of you who want strategies that have to do with the mental and emotional components that go into this, how to like take care of yourself in this way while taking care of your kids, strategies for effective communication and boundaries so that you don't lose your mind, because just leaving a narcissist isn't the end of it. Like, for however long your kids are growing up, from now until they're 18, if you share custody with this person, you're going to be dealing with them in some capacity. So you need to have repeatable strategies that you can use so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time they come at you with something new. So I'll be including that will be a bulk of what is included in not just the content that I create, but my personalized content for anyone who decides that they want a more personalized one-on-one and group approach to supporting one another through this. And also, I will be including more practical tips for navigating the legal system. So this will include tips on mediation, how mediation can help you, what to know about that, how to use it to your advantage, and lots of tips from working with lawyers over the years that will be extremely helpful for you to have before you begin working with your own lawyer. So I'll be including an assortment of different things that will be relevant to you at all different stages of this process, but will set you up to be extremely, way more successful than you would be just going into this blind like I did. I had no idea what I was dealing with before like I've said before, I had 2 experiences with narcissistic partners and didn't fully know what I was dealing with until after the relationships ended. So if you think things are bad already, expect them to get worse. And keep those 3 main points in mind that I went over about the likely evolution of how they'll start to break down after you end a relationship with them, and their true character will come out more and more, because knowing what to expect is a huge part of preparing. So I am really looking forward to connecting with you all. I really want to hear what you have to say about this. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so that you see any future videos that come out. And also go to my website, which I have linked in the description. It's a bit of a work in progress right now, but it is highconflictcustody.com. And I post blogs. So a lot of the content that I'll be talking about here, I'll also be posting blog posts about. So if you enjoy reading or just coming back to information in a written form, I'll have different things posted on there as well. And yeah, as always, like, please leave comments. I do read those. And I look forward to connecting with you more in the upcoming weeks as I share more about the different types of support and tools that I'm putting together for you. All right. Thank you for being here. Talk soon. Bye.